I please invite you to adopt the agenda. Are there any objections? So I don't see any objections, so the agenda is adopted. May I remind colleagues that the election of committee officers for the next annual session of the Assembly will take place during the committee's final session, which is likely to take place on Monday morning. As agreed yesterday, nominations for candidates for election should be handed in to the table office no later than 6 p.m. today. In this second meeting, we will consider amendments to the draft resolution from the rapporteur, Ms. Gudrun-Kugler. Time permitting, we will then consider the first supplementary item on microplastic and nanoplastic pollution prepared by Mr. John Aldick of Canada. Now, we will move to consider the amendments submitted to the draft resolution. 18 valid amendments have been tabled, and copies of the amendments have been made available. We have also received one late manuscript amendment that has been calculated separately. In discussing amendments 1, we call the proposer of the amendment first, and then I will call an opponent of the amendment. I will then ask the sponsor of the draft resolution, Ms. Gudrun-Kugler, for her opinion. Following that, I shall put the amendment to the vote. Dear colleagues, I ask speakers to observe a time limit of 1 minute for each speaker. We are also required to vote on every paragraph to which there are no amendments. Now we will start with paragraph 1 to 4. I ask you if anyone wants a separate vote on any of these paragraphs. No, I don't see anyone who wants a separate vote. So, anyone against? Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? So no abstentions. Paragraph 1 to 4 agreed. Now we come to manuscript amendment 1, which would add a new paragraph after paragraph 4. In accordance with paragraph 10 of the Rule 2022 of our Rules of Procedure, first I will ask whether there is any objection to the manuscript amendment being considered. If there is any objection, the amendment cannot be considered. So, is there any objection to the manuscript amendment being considered? No objection. So, I call Ms. Kugler to propose manuscript amendment 1 to add a new paragraph after paragraph 4. Please, Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I have mentioned yesterday when I presented my report, our report and the draft resolution were submitted to the OSCE PA before the incident at the Kachovka Dam. This is why the dam catastrophe is not mentioned in the resolution, but we have also agreed in many conversations that it's very necessary to mention what happened, because in a second committee we deal especially with the effects of such a catastrophe. So this is why I took up the idea of our very esteemed colleague from Ukraine that we would insert an amendment. And we sat together yesterday and came up with the formulation that you find now on your tables. And I don't know, do I need to read it out? Yes. No, I don't. So,
if you want to, you cannot. Yeah.
So you have the text. Does everybody have the text? No, the Finnish delegation doesn't have the text.
It's outside. It's not on the table.
Somebody will find it for you. It's outside at the tables. Yes. So I will read it. Appalled by the deliberate destruction of the dam of Kachovka hydroelectric power plant and deploring its devastating ecological and detrimental humanitarian effects, also threatening the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. right? So this is the text, if everybody can maybe get a copy. So I propose that we adopt this amendment after paragraph 4 as a new paragraph 5.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. I want to ask if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. No? So I shall now put Amendment 1 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 1 please raise their voting cards?
Keep them raised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, there's more now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11.
Finished? Thank you. Will all those against this amendment please raise their voting cards? No objection. Thank you. Any abstentions? No. Amendment 1 is adopted. Thank you. Now we come to paragraph 5 and 6. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No separate vote. Thank you. Anyone against? No. In favor? Please raise your voting cards.
That's fine. We don't need a number that's unanimous.
Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 5 and 6 agreed to.
Okay, this version.
Now we come to Amendment 1. As far as I understand, that Mr. Doggett of United States wished to propose an oral amended to his amendment. So I first call Mr. Doggett to propose the main amendment, and we will then go with the sub.
To read out the text of the sub-amendment.
Yeah. We will go with the sub-amendment first. Yes, Mr. Doggett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Kugler, for an excellent base resolution, particularly in view of the amendment that we just adopted, drawing appropriate attention to the ecological damage from the dam destruction and the threat to the nuclear power plant. I would seek consent to modify my amendment to strike the word Ukraine's before the word environment and then add thereafter, comma, especially in Ukraine. Ms. Kugler has appropriately noted that while the principal damage to the environment is in Ukraine from landmines, tens of thousands of landmines scattered across Ukraine, from the threat to the nuclear power plant, which could cause devastating health effects far beyond the borders of Ukraine, to this recent destruction of the dam, leading to the loss of life and irreparable environmental damage, that the impact of the Russian invasion extends to other countries across Europe and the world, to the extent that countries have moved away from their commitments to the Paris Accord on the climate crisis and the like. The impact is far-reaching to the extent that countries in much of the developing world cannot access the grain that they need and are making changes locally. The impact of the environment is broad. So we should emphasize Ukraine, but should point out that there's broad environmental damage. Beyond that, as far as adding the word Russia's, so often in our work as parliamentarians on a wide range of issues, there are good arguments on both sides. In this case, emphasizing at every point that this is an unprovoked, unjustified set of war crimes committed by the Russian Federation is important, and hence my inclusion of the words Russia's. So with that small modification to be consistent with the amendment we've already adopted, I would ask approval of the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doggett. In accordance with paragraph 10 of Rule 2022 of the Rules of Procedure, the oral sub-amendment cannot be considered if there are any objections to it. So I am asking if there is any objection. No objection, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this sub-amendment? No, this is not the case. Thank you. I would like to ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Please, Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Doggett, for being so flexible. In the form you proposed it now, I'm very happy to also agree to this amendment. Our delegate from Ukraine has yesterday explained how the environmental damage goes beyond Ukrainian borders. Right. And if it had been the amendment in its original form, I would have not been very happy with it because it would have been wrong in content, but like this, I think it is an improvement. I would like to draw your attention to paragraph number 4, where we do very clearly spell out what Russia is doing. And for the sake of reduction, really, we didn't think we needed to repeat it in paragraph 7, but your addition in this sense is good and useful, and I thank you for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. I shall now put this sub-amendment to the vote. Will all those in favor of the sub-amendment please raise their voting cards?
Yeah, fine, unanimous. I don't need to count.
11.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you very much. Will all those against please raise their voting cards?
None.
No against. Any abstention?
None.
No.
So the oral supplement is adopted.
So the oral sub-amendment is adopted. We will now consider the main amendment as amended. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? No? Thank you. What is the opinion of the amendment? What's the opinion of rapporteur about the amendment? As amended.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
please, you agree?
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. So I now put in vote the amendment. Will all those in favor of the amendment as amended please raise their voting cards? Thank you.
We should always count you
Who's against?
because you're here. She's part of the count.
No objection?
With her, it's always 12.
Thank you. Any abstention? No. The amendment as amended is adopted. So, now I will vote on paragraph 7 as amended. Anyone against? Please raise your voting cards. No. Those in favor? Please. Thank you. Any abstentions? No. The paragraph 7 as amended is agreed to. Now, we come to paragraph 8 to 10. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No, I don't see anyone. So, we will take paragraph 8 to 10 together. Anyone against? No. Those in favor, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 8 to 10 agreed to. Now I call Ms. Telman from Romania to propose amendment 2 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 10. Please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I felt like we have to underline the role of gender equality. Of course, the paragraph 10, which we already voted and everyone agreed about, is stressing out the importance of the full participation of women. But if we are very honest and we are looking at the numbers in every OCC participating state, we have to admit that in our government sometimes there are not enough women, and mostly it is because we have to be better prepared and deliver more support. So I just wanted to underline these things and coming up with another amendment and another paragraph, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I shall ask if anyone wishes to take the floor against this amendment. No one. Thank you. Now I would like to ask the opinion of Madam Kugler. Please, Madam Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Many thanks to Mrs. Tellmann for her contribution. I will, of course, agree to this, but I thought it would have been maybe more elegant to extend paragraph 10 and make it 1, because the difference between 10 and 11 new is maybe not so clear, but it doesn't matter, and it's an important thought.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I shall put Amendment 2 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 2 please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Any objection? Any abstentions? No. The Amendment 2 is adopted. Now I call Ms. Henriksen from Norway to propose Amendment 3 to paragraph 11. Please, Madam Henriksen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I have proposed to slightly change the wording in the introductory paragraph 11 in the draft resolution. And that is because Norway, as an Arctic country, is chairing the Arctic Council at this moment, and we have a pretty good view of what is going on and are paying close attention to the development in the Arctic Council and the Arctic area. The geopolitical importance of the Arctic is on the rise, that is true. But I believe that the world tension better describes what we see in the Arctic at the moment than confrontation. We see a growing geopolitical tension, but no active confrontation. And it is important that we do what we can to keep it that way. Russia is not taking an active part in the Arctic Council as for now, and therefore I think that word tension is describing better the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Henriksen. Now I'd like to ask you if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. No, no one. Now I'd like to ask the opinion of Madam Kugler. Please, Madam Rapporteur.
Thank you, Ms. Henriksen, for this improvement of the text. I do agree with what you say, and I'm happy that we changed the word.
Thank you. Now I put Amendment 3 to the vote. Please raise your voting cards who are in favor. Thank you. Are there any objections? No objections. Any abstentions? No. The Amendment 3 is adopted. Now I will vote on paragraph 11 as amended. Anyone against? No. In favor? Please raise your voting cards. Okay. Thank you. Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Paragraph 11 as amended is agreed to. Paragraph 12. Now we will vote on paragraph 12. Anyone against? Anyone against? No. Thank you. Those in favor, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 12 is agreed to. Amendment 4. Now I call Mr. Senekis from Cyprus to propose Amendment 4 to paragraph 13. Mr. Senekis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since Mrs. Haralambidis is in another committee, I would like to explain the rationale of this amendment that is underlying the need to adopt a binding code of conduct. And as a member of the Rules of Subcommittee, Mrs. Haralambidis will be seeing along with the other subcommittee members to form a text that can gather consensus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Senekis. Now I ask our committee members if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. Please, our colleague from Germany.
Yes, Malte Kaufmann from Germany. I think we have many national regulations concerning codes of conduct to fighting corruption, and I don't know what this code of conduct exactly will mean finally, and I think it should be in the national parliament's power, and therefore I'm against an adoption of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will ask the opinion of our rapporteur, Ms. Kugler. Madam Kugler, please, you have the floor.
We have been discussing the idea of a binding code of conduct for quite a long time, and there is also a resolution, a draft resolution. And I think that from my point of view, we should say it in there, and I would like to take the occasion to thank Irene Karalambides for her tireless work. Whoever knows her knows that she is the lady fighting corruption, and what she does is, I think, very meaningful for OSCE EPA.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I put Amendment 4 to the vote. Please, all those in favor of Amendment 4, raise your voting cards. Thank you. Will all those against this amendment please raise their voting cards? Any abstentions? So Amendment 4 is adopted. Now I will vote on paragraph 13 as amended. Anyone against? No. Thank you. Those in favor? Majority. Thank you. Abstentions?
1, 2,
3 abstentions. So paragraph 13 as amended is agreed to. Now we will vote on paragraph 14. Anyone against? No? Thank you. Those in favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? No abstentions. So paragraph 14 is agreed to. Now I call Mr. Lecamp from France to propose Amendment 5 to paragraph 15. Please, Mr. Lecamp, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Merci beaucoup. Le présent amendement vise à intégrer un concept important, il me semble, dans le texte excellent de notre collègue, c'est la sobriété énergétique. Afin qu'une prise de conscience et qu'un changement durable des comportements de tous les habitants de cette planète change. Nous, on l'a vu cet hiver en France, où l'électricité nationale a manqué, puisque nos centrales nucléaires étaient pour un tiers arrêtées, et les efforts de sobriété qu'a demandé le gouvernement se sont traduits pendant tout l'hiver par une réduction de la consommation seulement sur cet effort de sobriété de 12%. Donc le sens de l'amendement, c'est consommer de façon plus responsable, consommer moins surtout, préserver nos ressources et notre planète. C'est tout le sens de l'amendement. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this amendment? No, this is not the case. Now I will ask of opinion from Madam Rapporteur Kugler. Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lecomte, for your comments. I generally agree with the idea, but I was wondering whether the word sobriety is the right word in English. And this is why I can see that there is another amendment that actually corrects the use of the word. And it should, if you turn to this text, it should say, after founded on, insert restraint in the use of energy and resources. And I think it's important to clarify which term is the correct term in English.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I put Amendment 5 to the vote. Please.
Just to answer to Mrs. Kugler, I think it's very important. Je sais qu'on parle français, et je représente la France. J'ai la chance to speak also fluently English, and I quite agree with what you said. And restraint is really what we mean in France by sobriété. And sobriété, if you translate word for word in English, it's what we call in French un faux ami. That's a French expression. We have to take care that the same word written the same way means the same thing, which is not the same case. So I agree with a change of wording to make sure that the English wording represents what we mean in France as sobriété.
Thank you. Now, come back to the voting. So I shall put Amendment 5 to the vote. Please, all those in favor of Amendment 5, raise their voting cards. Thank you. Against? No against. Any abstentions? No abstentions. So Amendment 5 is adopted. Thank you. Now we will vote on paragraph 15 as amended. Anyone against? No. In favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No. Paragraph 15 as amended is agreed to. Now we come to paragraph 16 to 22. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No separate vote. Shall we take paragraph 16 to 22 together? So I am asking if anyone against, please raise your voting cards. To take paragraph from 16 to 22. No against. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. So paragraph 16 to 22 agreed to. So we have some oral amendment. Now amendment 6, as was understood, sponsor Ms. Spartz wishes to propose an oral sub-amendment to this amendment, to her amendment actually. So I first call Madam Spartz to propose the amendment and to read out the text of her sub-amendment. Please, Madam Spartz, you have the floor.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you taking, this is important issue because energy security is really an important part of really the whole security of the region. And what I want to make sure is that it's very clear here that I wanted to add an oral amendment just to say, emphasize that they need to become and remain independent. Since we know we still have some challenges and countries still have a dependency, but I think for the security of the region, it's important not to have this dependency on Russian Federation. So my oral amendment just emphasizes the need to become and remain. So become and is just added after the two independent of Russian of energy provided by the Russian Federation, which is weaponized against receiving countries and used as blackmail to destabilize the region. I'd appreciate your support of this oral amendment to my amendment, and my amendment too.
Thank you, Madam Spartz. As you know, according to our rule, first of all, we need to have a consensus. Otherwise, we cannot consider this sub-amendment. So I am asking, is there any consensus? Yeah, I don't see any objections. So yeah, so I shall ask if anyone wishes to talk against this sub-amendment, please ask. our colleague from Germany, please.
Yes, we have some countries in our OSCE that do not follow the sanctions on Russia, so I don't think we should include this paragraph also with the oral amendment into our resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will ask the opinion of our rapporteurs about the sub-amendment. Please, Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
In my presentation yesterday, I spoke a lot about energy diversification, also because of geopolitical considerations. I think it is extremely important that nobody is dependent on one country, which country ever, on one major resource for their country. And so now we have many countries in the OSCE region who are heavily dependent on the Russian Federation for their fossil energy. So in this sense, I think it is a very important insertion, and I want to thank Ms. Sports for bringing it up. And I do think that without the addition, it would be misleading, because if it only says remain independent, then a large number of OSCE participating states will say, well, but we are dependent, right? So I do support the amendment with the oral amendment of become independent and remain independent. And if it's maybe not on me, but to answer our colleague from Germany, even if the situation is different, I think it would make sense for the Parliamentary Assembly to point out what would be a desired political direction, and this is why I think it's very meaningful to adopt this amendment.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I shall put this sub-amendment to the vote. Will all those in favor of the sub-amendment please raise your voting cards?
So let's count, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Thank you. Now I ask who are against this sub-amendment?
Just the one. Just the one.
Just the one. Any abstentions? No. The oral sub-amendment is adopted. Now I will consider the main amendment as amended. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? No? Now I will ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Madam Kugler.
Yes.
She agrees. So, thank you.
Yes.
So, it is a procedure I have to follow. Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I put the amendment as amended to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment as amended, please raise their voting cards. Thank you. Clear majority. Who are against? Who are against? Against. One? One.
Right.
Thank you. Any abstentions? No. The amendment as amended is adopted. Thank you. So, now I will vote on paragraph 23. Anyone against? No one. Those in favor, please raise their voting cards. Thank you. Any abstentions? No. Paragraph 23 is agreed to. Now I call Mr. Doggett from the United States of America to propose Amendment 7 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 23. Mr. Doggett, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. President Zelensky has described this conflict as the choice between freedom and fear. And while that fear is imposed most directly on Ukraine, it affects the world. This amendment makes clear that what we have is a war crime against Ukraine and against the world. It began from the very moment of the unprovoked aggression by Russia into Ukraine and continues now with widespread use of mines, with the threat to the nuclear power plants that could cause tremendous health damage to countries far beyond Ukraine, and of course to the overall destruction of civilian infrastructure in what is a war crime after war crime, where Russia has directed its aggression specifically against civilian targets to terrorize the civilian population, so that innocent victims in nursing homes to kindergartens have been impacted, and those in hospitals. I move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Doggett. Now I have to ask if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. No one. I ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
I would like to thank Mr. Doggett for this very meaningful amendment to the draft resolution, and I will, of course, be in favor.
Thank you. Now I put Amendment 7 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 7 please raise their voting cards? In favor? Okay. Thank you. Any objections? Anyone against? No. Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Amendment 7 is adopted. Now I will vote on paragraph 24. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 24 is agreed.
It's going to be Ben Carton, not Mr. Hudson, for this one.
I call Senator Ben Cardin from the United States of America to propose Amendment 8 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 24. So Senator Ben Cardin, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm offering this amendment on behalf of Representative Hudson, as we all know, who chairs the first committee, so the first committee is meeting as we are meeting. This amendment would encourage cooperation for the development and adoption of small modular reactors to achieve energy independence and diversification. I think we all recognize that small modular reactors are powerful technology that is critical to achieving energy independence and diversification. The technology is nearly viable. It's carbon neutral and can help the region to resist Russia's fossil fuels. I encourage all my colleagues to join me in supporting the development of small modular reactors. They are very near to this important breakthrough. It's energy that will be cheaper, safer, and make us more resilient against autocrats.
Thank you, Senator Cardin. Now I'd like to ask if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. Please.
Thank you very much, Ireland, I'm Pauline O'Reilly from Ireland. I don't think that I'm necessarily against cooperation, but I think that the part about and use of small modular reactors is the part that I have an issue with. In Ireland, we certainly don't feel that any form of new nuclear is necessary when we have a huge amount of wind and solar. And so I think that this is actually quite specific and is very much in favour of one industry over others. So that's why I won't be voting in favour. Thank you.
From United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. I represent Scottish constituency, and certainly in Scotland, majority is against nuclear. So I will not be supporting this amendment either. I would point to a study from Stanford University I've just found that suggests that small modular reactors will actually increase the volume of nuclear waste in need of management and disposal by factors of 2 to 30 for the reactors in their case study. So from my point of view, I will not be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, I would like to remind you that according to the rule, one speaks in favor, propose his or her amendment, and one has a right to speak against. So in that case, we had a one in favor speaking and the two against or in different opinion. Please just into consideration. Senator Cardin, you want to ask something? Order? Point of order? Please. Please, microphone. Please. Senator Cardin, please, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. In a matter of fairness, I think I should have at least 30 seconds to respond since there were two speakers against. The new nuclear reactors, modules we're talking about, do not produce the nuclear waste of the larger ones. This is to get us away from the large nuclear reactors that have a waste issue. It's new technologies, and I'm just surprised that we would be opposed to development of technology that can make us safer and have less nuclear waste to deal with.
Thank you very much, Senator Pincardin. Now I will ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Madam Kugler, please.
Thank you very much. As I have laid out very clearly yesterday in my presentation, the technology really is the answer for the problems we have in this sector. However, I have to say that it's also a little bit difficult for me to support this amendment. One of the reasons is that Austria has already for many decades a very clear commitment against nuclear energy. So that's my very personal situation. But I would also say that it is very important to cooperate on development. But are we far advanced enough to speak about adoption? Because my status of information is that there are still many unknowns with regard to SMRs, and that maybe it's not far advanced enough for such a clear endorsement. But that's just what I can pose with a question mark. And so for me, in my particular situation as being from Austria, I cannot support the amendment.
Thank you very much. Now we shall go to the vote. I will put Amendment 8 to the vote. Please, all those in favor of Amendment 8, raise their voting cards. Thank you. Against? Thank you. Any abstentions?
It's passed.
Altogether. And we're counting everything.
Thank you. I announce the number.
29 in favour.
29 in favor.
13 against.
13 against.
5 abstentions.
5 abstentions. So the Amendment 8 is adopted. Thank you. Now we come paragraph 25 and 26. Does anyone want a separate vote on any of these paragraphs? No. Thank you. So we will now take paragraph 25 and 26 together. I ask if anyone wishes to speak to just to talk against this. Anyone wishes to speak against?
No, just vote. No speaking.
Sorry, just anyone?
No one does. So.
Any objections? So he makes me confused. Anyone against this amendment? Against this paragraph 25 and 26? No. Thank you. Those in favor? Paragraph 25 and 26? So, thank you. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. So paragraph 25 and 26 agreed. Thank you. Now I call Mr. Bierecki from Poland to propose amendment 9 to paragraph 27. Mr. Bierecki, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Reporter. So my proposal is to come up with a language, different language, which will be closer to the language which is used in the binding resolutions of the Human Rights Council. So we all recognize that living in a safe, clean, and sustainable environment directly and positively impacts on a full enjoyment of human rights, such as the right to live and the right to health. However, the right to environment as a human right has not yet found its recognition in any key human rights instruments and are more importantly in legally binding international instruments. The aim of this amendment is to remain as close as possible to the language used in the Human Rights Council resolutions, along with the UN General Assembly resolutions on the same issue with a similar language. So that's, I ask you for support for this correction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I will ask if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. 9. Canada, please. Mr. Aldag, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. I would respectfully offer that a clean and healthy environment is a fundamental right. There are many countries that have adopted this within their constitutions, within their legislation. In Canada, in our last sitting session, we have joined the many nations who have already done this. And I think that it is both historic and that the United Nations reached this agreement to recognize a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. And I believe that the original wording put forward by Dr. Kugler is the best wording, and so I will be voting against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John Aldag, and I will ask the opinion of our rapporteur.
Thank you very much. I have to say that I would like to abstain at this question because I think maybe the best way is just in between. I do agree the word healing shouldn't be in such documents. It's not sober. It's not sober enough. And generally, from Central Europe, the word heal is generally a word that I don't want to use, and I have overlooked that, and I do agree that it would be better to use a different one. But the word noting is also very, very, very sober, and maybe not in correspondence to what is going on in our world and the discussions that we lead. I also have to say I agree a little bit with the usage of the word fundamental, which is a legal term that is reserved probably for another set of rights. So since I kind of feel that I'm in between the chairs, I will abstain from voting on this.
Thank you very much. Now I shall put Amendment 9 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 9 please raise their voting cards? Who are in favor?
5 on this side.
So 7, 8 in total.
Thank you. Who are against this amendment?
6 on this side.
Thank you. Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3 on this side. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8.
Thank you.
So
It is defeated.
this amendment 9 is defeated. May I just ask the number?
8 for, 21 against.
8 for in favor is amendment, and
21 against.
21 against, 8 abstentions. Thank you.
So not amended, so now vote on paragraph 27.
We will now vote on paragraph 27. Anyone against? No. Those in favor, paragraph 27? Thank you. Any abstentions? No abstentions. Paragraph 27 is agreed. Thank you. Paragraph 28. Now we will vote on paragraph 28. Anyone against? Paragraph 28. No one. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No. Paragraph 28 is agreed. Thank you. Now I call Mr. Lecamp from France to propose amendment 10 to paragraph 29. Mr. Lecamp, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and once again, thank you, Dr. Kugler, for this very good resolution altogether. Cet amendement vise à souligner le rôle néfaste, tout particulièrement des nanoplastiques et des microplastiques, ajoutés intentionnellement à certains produits du quotidien, tels que les détergents, les peintures ou les produits cosmétiques. Ce sujet est en fait peu connu, mais conduit in fine à la pénétration dans l'air, dans les océans de ces plastiques. L'Agence européenne des produits chimiques recommandait en 2019 de bannir ce procédé dans la production. Avec cet amendement, je nous invite à prendre tous collectivement nos responsabilités sur cet enjeu qui peut paraître secondaire à certains, mais qui est ô combien important pour garantir aux générations futures définitivement des mers et un air éradiqués de ces produits polluants et dangereux. Merci.
Thank you very much. Now, I will ask if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. No one. So, Madam Rapporteur, please share your opinion about this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lecomte, I do laud your attention and I share the concern. And this is also why we wanted to give a lot more space to this issue, more than the report and resolution can carry. This is why I'm so happy that Mr. John Eldek sponsored a supplementary item on this topic. And I do agree that we need to look into this in more detail on the long run. However, with your amendment, I have two problems. I have talked to the main researchers at the Vienna University who really do, for all of Europe, have research projects on this topic, and they are very, very alerted and concerned about what's going on. But they say that there's two mistakes in the text. One is that it is not intentional, but the contents that cause the problem largely are just part of it without an intentional addition. They say that the word intentional is incorrect. And they also say that the biggest problem is not fertilizers, cosmetics, and industrial products. The biggest problem is tires. And they say that in such a list of examples, tires needs to be mentioned at all, and it needs to be mentioned first. So in this sense, I would abstain, because yes, I agree with the intention, but I think that in these two examples, the word intentional and the missing example of tires, it is rather weak.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I put Amendment 10 to the vote. Please raise your voting cards if you are in favor of this amendment. Now, amendment number 10. In favor. Thank you. Who are against? Please raise their voting cards. Against. Thank you. Abstentions? So 15 for, 11 against, 16 abstentions. So Amendment 10 is adopted. Now I will vote on paragraph 29 as amended. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? 2, 3. Thank you. Paragraph 29 as amended is agreed. Thank you. Now, again, I call Mr. Lecomte from France to propose Amendment 11 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 29. Please, Mr. Lecomte, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Comme nombreux d'entre vous le savent, l'ONU pilote depuis 2022 actuellement des négociations pour un traité international pour mettre fin à la pollution plastique. La deuxième session de négociation qui s'est tenue à Paris du 29 mai au 2 juin dernier, a permis, après des négociations certes difficiles entre les représentants des 175 pays, de donner mandat à l'unanimité à M. Gustavo Meza Quadra Velasquez, président du Comité international de négociation, pour rédiger une première version de l'accord qui sera discuté au Kenya en novembre prochain. Nous avons donc ici une opportunité historique de signer un accord qui soit à la fois ambitieux et contraignant pour 2025. Cet amendement vise à ce que nous marquions ensemble notre soutien. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Lecomte. Now, I will ask if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment number 11. No one wishes. Please, Madam Kugler, our rapporteur, please, you have the floor. Share your idea.
I would like to thank Mr. Lecomte very much for this very meaningful addition to the report, the resolution.
Thank you. Now I shall put Amendment 11 to the vote. Please raise your voting cards if you are in favor of Amendment 11. Thank you very much. Against? Any abstention? No. Amendment 11 is adopted. Paragraph 30 to 39. We now come to paragraph 30 to 39. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No request for separate vote. Thank you. So we will take paragraph 30 to 39 together. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? No. So paragraph 30 to 39, agreed. Thank you. I call Mr. Veazey from the United States to propose Amendment 12 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 39. Please, Mr. Veazey, you have the floor.
Present his amendment.
Microphone, please.
Let's see, now it's going.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Vesey's been detained, and I will present his amendment in his absence. His amendment deals with a very important matter of corruption. We know that long before Putin launched his war crimes against Ukraine, he was trying to undermine democracy there through corruption. This affects countries not only near Ukraine, but around the world. Both Russia and the People's Republic of China use a variety of tactics to undermine democracies around the world, and Mr. Vesey's amendment simply focuses attention on the importance of developing defenses against authoritarian corruption. Certainly one of the most important is the issue of money laundering, which continues to occur. And so I urge the adoption of his amendment and the focus all of our countries in fighting corruption and fighting money laundering and discouraging lobbying loopholes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 12? No one. Now I shall ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank our friend from the United States for this amendment because I think the content is very meaningful and I will gladly support it. I would just, however, like to point out that one could consider that there's two countries mentioned, and there might also be others. So it could have an open formulation of saying "and others." And also, one of these countries is a participating state, the other one is not, so that puts them in a way for us a little bit on different levels. And then I also wonder whether it is the best committee for this amendment, or there might be another one where it's more fitting. But that being said, I laud the intention, I support what this is about, and I will be happy to vote in favor.
Thank you very much. Now I put Amendment 12 to the vote. Please raise your voting cards if you are in favor. Thank you. Against? Against. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Any abstentions? 2, 3.
4, 5, actually, 5 abstentions.
So Amendment 12 is adopted. Thank you. Now we come to paragraph 40 and 41. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No. This is not the case. So we will take paragraph 40 and paragraph 14 together. Anyone against? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Abstentions? 1 abstention. Paragraph 40 and 41 agreed too. Now I call Mr. Lecamp from France to propose Amendment 13 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 41. Mr. Leca, please, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, ce présent amendement, il est dans la lignée de celui, le premier que j'ai présenté tout à l'heure. Il vise à demander aux États membres de l'OSCE d'élaborer des plans de sobriété. Donc, on va retrouver confronté au problème de la sobriété, mais c'est bien dans le sens de Restraint Energy Consumption. Donc, ce plan, il serait destiné à susciter un changement des comportements et à diminuer la consommation d'énergie à tous les niveaux. Ça reprend ce que j'ai dit tout à l'heure. Peut-être qu'il faut voir sur le mot sobriété comment le traduire en anglais, mais je pense qu'il est important d'insister sur ce point pour que tous ensemble, et que l'OSCE derrière, pousse à ce qu'il y ait un changement des comportements pour réduire les consommations. Merci.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 13? No. Please, Madam Kugler, what is your opinion of that amendment?
I want to thank the French delegation for submitting this amendment. I think it's very useful.
Thank you. I shall now put Amendment 13 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 13 please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Against? No. Abstentions? 1. So Amendment 13 is adopted. Now, we will vote on paragraph 42. Anyone against? No. Thank you. Those in favor, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Abstentions? Abstentions. No abstention. Thank you. Paragraph 42 is agreed. Thank you. Amendment 14. I call Ms. Glanzmann from Switzerland to propose Amendment 14 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 42. Ms. Glanzmann, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Die Integration von Migrantinnen und Migranten in der Gesellschaft ihrer Wahlheimat wird größtenteils durch ihren Zugang zum Arbeitsmarkt gewährleistet. Genau dies will dieses Amendement. Voraussetzung dafür ist jedoch, dass die Staaten die offizielle Anerkennung der Berufsausbildungen und auch die akademischen Abschlüsse, die diese Personen in ihren Herkunftsländern erworben haben, erleichtern. Die Anerkennung dieser Abschlüsse, die für den Zugang zum Arbeitsmarkt unerlässlich sind, bleibt jedoch noch zu oft aus und wird durch zahlreiche bürokratische Verfahren behindert. Durch Erleichterungen in diesem Bereich könnten die Staaten nicht nur den Zugang der Migrantinnen und Migranten zur Wirtschaft unterstützen, sie könnten damit auch eine wirksame, nachhaltige und für die sozialen Rechte wichtige Integration fördern. Danke, wenn Sie diesen Zusatz unterstützen.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 14? No one. So I shall ask the opinion of Madam Kugler. Please, Madam Kugler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank Ms. Glanzmann for this very meaningful addition to the report, to the resolution. We have discussed yesterday how the issue of demography also changes our countries, and you mentioned integration, so I do think that this is absolutely key for the second committee and a meaningful addition. I would like to thank you for this.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I put Amendment 14 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 14 please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Against? No one. Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. So Amendment 14 is adopted. Thank you. Now come to paragraph 43 and 44. Does anyone want a separate vote on any of these paragraphs? No. So we will take now paragraph 43 and 44 together. Anyone against? No one. Those in favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. Paragraph 43 and 44 agreed to. Now I call Ms. Henriksen from Norway to propose Amendment 15 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 44. Madam Henriksen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose to add a new paragraph after paragraph 44. I believe that OSCE EPA should continue focusing on the impact of climate change in the Arctic as the previous special representatives on Arctic and climate stated in their reports. The pace of climate change is higher in the Arctic than in any other part of the world. This is a global challenge and we must address it together. The Norwegian chairship of the Arctic Council has 4 priority topics from 2023 to 2025. It's oceans, climate and environment, sustainable economic development, and people in the north, including indigenous people and youth as a focus in all priorities, which is very much aligned in the concerns and the priorities we have in our committee also. Therefore, I have proposed a new paragraph, which I hope you will support. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Henriksen. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 15? No one. So what is the opinion of our rapporteur on the Amendment 15? Please, Madam Kugler.
I would like to thank Ms. Henriksen for this amendment, which I think is a very useful addition to our resolution. And for all of us and for the entire OSCE region, we can really not underestimate, we must not underestimate the importance of this topic. And so I'm very grateful that you are so strong and outspoken on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I put Amendment 15 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 15 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Any objections? No objection. Any abstentions? No abstention. Amendment 15 is adopted. Now I call Mr. Aldag from Canada to propose Amendment 16 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 44 and after the paragraph just inserted by Amendment 15. So, Mr. Aldag, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our planet is facing many challenges, and I put forward that the loss of biodiversity is one of those very serious challenges. Despite our country, our planets, the ongoing efforts of countries around the world, biodiversity is deteriorating at rates unprecedented in human history. According to the United Nations Environment Programme's report in 2021 called Making Peace with Nature, 1 million of the world's estimated 8 million species of plants and animals are threatened with extinction, and many of the ecosystem services essential for well-being are eroding, and these ecosystems are also accelerating the loss of biodiversity. The reasons for biodiversity loss include changing land and sea use, overexploitation, climate change, and pollution. This amendment would add an operative paragraph to the draft resolution to signal our support for the implementation of a global biodiversity framework. The amendment also draws attention to one of the 23 targets of the framework, namely Target 3, also known as the 30 by 30 initiative, one which Canada has signed on to, which calls on parties to ensure that at least 30% of the planet's lands and oceans are protected by 2030. Nature can and must be conserved, restored, and used sustainably, and I ask for your support for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aldag. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 16? No one. What is the opinion of our rapporteur on Amendment 16? Please, Madam Kugler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, I will support the amendment. I would just like to mention that, as I have pointed out yesterday as well, I think there have already been achievements, and we also need to highlight them, because otherwise we frustrate people and we scare them. And this is especially a problem for the young and the next generation. And so the tone of the amendment is, this is it, like this, the last one switches off the lights. That's the tone. And I don't think that this is the tone politics should have. And I want to alert you to what I said yesterday, and you'll find it also in my report. There have been major improvements. We cut down harmful chemicals in the last decade by 50%, right? So there's less species dying out because of that. There have been amazing reappearances of species, and there's a long list in science where you can see that we thought it was extinct, and suddenly, 15 years later, it was spotted again. And I think the Great Barrier Reef is a great example, because only 6 months ago we had news articles, big ones, that said the Great Barrier Reef has 5 years to go, and then that's it. And then in the summer, there was a new release that said it's actually in the best condition it has ever been in the last 35 years. And if we tell people, listen, if we behave well and if we make the changes, appropriate changes, then we can actually make a difference. And you can see here is the Great Barrier Reef, and it's in a better condition. I think people are more motivated to actually make the changes that we need them to make. And so I do agree with the amendment, but we all have to remember that the tone needs often be a more positive one in order to motivate people. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. Now I put Amendment 16 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 16, please raise your voting cards. In favor? Thank you. Against? Against? One. Any abstentions? One abstention. So Amendment 16 is adopted. So now we come to another oral amendment. Amendment 17 proposed by Ms. Tellman from Romania. Now Ms. Tellman wants to propose an oral sub-amendment to her amendment. I call first to propose Madam Tellman's the amendment and to read out the text of the sub-amendment. And then we will go with the sub-amendment first, and according to the Rule 10 and the 22 of the Rules Procedure, the oral amendment cannot be considered if there are any objections of it. So we start first from Ms. Tellman. Please propose your sub-amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The sub-amendment comes in the context of the already fruitful discussions which we had, especially on Amendment 8, and regarding on the points of view from our colleagues on nuclear energy. So I would like to make my oral amendment. Comes insert in my already written amendment, and it's to maintain the role of small nuclear reactors and to decrease the role of the natural gas in the energy mix. Dear colleagues, the whole amendment is to point out two major things. We have a transformative process, which we all have to admit all OCC countries are in a transformative process. Some countries are more ahead, and some countries are still struggling to implement some of the Green Deal achievements. So, and another word which I already have in my amendment is the role of competitiveness in their economy. So, if it's is it necessary to give to read the whole amendment as it is new now, or just?
Have you done in a written way? Do we have a copy of that?
No,
or?
no.
No. So, according to our rule, we need a consensus on oral amendment. So I have to ask if any objection to this oral amendment. So, please, Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
If I may allow myself, Ms. Tellman, to, in all due respect, object to this amendment, this is becoming very complicated. We are here dealing with extremely sensitive issues, and it's a lot of terms that are being flying around. We do not have it in writing. As much as I understand, you changed the term maintain natural gas to decrease. It's a very big difference. But also you speak of maintaining SMRs, which are not yet in use. So there's the word maintain doesn't make so much sense. I find it's too complicated, too dangerous. We are here 57 parliaments meeting. What our declaration should be well thought through. Nobody has time to go back and consult with their delegations. I object to the oral amendment.
Thank you, Madam Kugler. As we have one objection already, so we cannot consider any further of the oral amendments. So I will proceed with the next one. So does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 17? Please.
Thank you very much. I think it's been acknowledged that everybody's at a different place. Some countries don't use nuclear or certainly have very little nuclear. Some countries use very little gas. To try and encourage countries to continue, I think, is beyond the role of the OSCE. And I think actually we have to really think carefully about what people think that this organisation is about from the outside. If I were to read it, as a neutral observer, it would look like people from industry had written part of this report. And I don't think that that's what we want to do. Without this amendment, people can, of course, still continue to use nuclear and gas. And it's up to each individual country to decide whether it supports or doesn't support their economy. So I would respectfully say, we may have different views. I'm certainly, the nuclear for me isn't the main issue. The issue here is the promotion of industry, and it's not the role of the OSCE to promote individual industries. It's the role to acknowledge there's a transition and to promote the reduction of emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, our colleague from Ireland. Now I will ask the opinion of Ms. Kugler.
Yes, well, I have already mentioned that Austria has a little problem with the energy, nuclear energy, as this has been quite, a tradition in Austria for many, many years. However, I understand the text to kind of maintain if you do, and so that I don't think then would require Austria to change policy. I do approve very much of the term that you use, maintaining competitiveness. I think we need to talk a lot more about competitiveness. This is a big issue for the OSCE region, because if we, if only in the OSCE region energy is multiple times more expensive than in other regions, we lose competitiveness, leading to deindustrialization, leading to a loss of jobs, leading to a downgrading of the entire region. So in this sense, I think the energy mix is broad enough for me not to vote against, but to abstain in this, for this amendment. But the term competitiveness, I would very much like to support as a key term.
Thank you. You want to take a point of order? Yes.
Maybe if we can agree to maintain the sentence of competitiveness of our economies, we can encourage, we can cut the whole phrase from to maintain till energy security, and then encourage governments in the transformative process towards economies using more resilient sources of energy, but also maintaining the competitiveness of their economy. So, if it's possible. So then we have both, we have the word also of competitiveness.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Tellman. So now I will put Amendment 17 to the vote.
No changes.
Please. No.
Yeah.
We don't have any changes, yeah. Sub-oral amendment, sub-amendment was was defeated. So we go with the amendment 17. So I now put amendment 17 to the vote. Please, who are in favor of amendment 17, raise their voting cards. In favor.
6, 9.
Thank you. Against?
6, 6 on the same. 6.
Any abstentions? 9 for, 18 against, 15 abstentions. So amendment 17 is defeated. Thank you. Now we come to paragraph 45 to 47. Does anyone want a separate vote of any of these paragraphs? No one. So we will take paragraph 45 to 47 together. Anyone against? No. In favor? Thank you. Abstentions? No. Paragraph 45 to 47 is agreed. Thank you. Now I call Mr. Accor from Belgium to propose Amendment 18 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 47. Mr. Accor, you have the floor. From Belgium.
Monsieur le Président, Monsieur Benachour n'étant pas là, je vais présenter l'amendement si vous le voulez bien. Merci. Cet amendement souhaite mettre en avant la dynamique politique qui existe au sein de l'ONU sur les plastiques. Et le but de cet amendement, c'est de simplement rappeler cette dynamique afin que nous puissions toutes et tous travailler contre la pollution plastique dont notre rapporteuse a signalé la dangerosité.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 18? No one. So, Madam Rapporteur, what's your opinion of that?
I would like to thank the Belgian delegation for pointing this out, and I'll be happy to support it. It comes a little bit similar maybe to Amendment 11, or it would fit there as well, but that's very much fine with me, and so I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Now I put Amendment 18 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 18 please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Any objection? No objection. Any abstentions? No abstention. Amendment 18 is adopted. Paragraph 48 and 59. Now we come to paragraph 48 and 59. Does anyone want a separate vote on any of these paragraphs? No requirement for separate vote. So we will take paragraph 48 to 59 together. Anyone against? No one. Those in favor? Thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention. Paragraph 48 to 59 is agreed. So that concludes the consideration of amendments. I would like to thank you, all of you, for your participation. I propose that we now formally move to a vote on the draft resolution as amended. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution as amended please raise their voting cards? Thank you very much. Who are against? No one is against. Any abstentions? No one. Thank you very much. The draft resolution as amended is adopted. Thank you very much. I want to congratulate our rapporteur and the committee. Very well done. Thank you, dear colleagues. Now we will start consideration of the supplementary items this afternoon at 2 p.m. So again, I am very grateful to all of you for your active participation. See you at 2 o'clock.